YouTube? Welcome back to the Green Ninja channel. I had a somewhat of a challenge come up from one of our viewers to do a video on the Florida legislation that's coming out, and it's coming from Florida Grown 311 Yo. So here is what I can see coming from this. The first part is that I would like to make known that it is really hard to find good details on this legislation. It took me a long time of searching a bunch of different websites to kind of figure out the history of the law, and not only just the history of the law, but also the direction it was going, and how much of a clusterfuck it really is there in terms of medical growing. There were two pieces of legislation that were running through. One of them decided 2 days ago that they were pulling out of that whole thing. So now we have the Florida Amendment 2, which will be in vote in 2016. It was the one that failed last year. The same group of people put in that proposal and failed by like 2.5% or something like that, because they require a supermajority of 60%. One of the things that really irritated me about this whole research process is how hard they've made it to find legitimate details, and I think that can really convolute the process and make people oppose it because there aren't really clearly laid out details as far as possession amounts for these medical users. The only thing regarding possession that I could find for this amendment was that the available prescription amount varies by prescription from the physician. So the physician will ultimately determine the amount that is appropriate for that medical user, which I kind of get why they went there, but then again I kind of don't. I understand it because that's what they do. They go, oh well, you'll get 20 milligrams of this and you'll take it once a day or whatever the case is. But with this, I think it's one of those things that I think that the patient should be able to determine what is comfortable for them and have wiggle room to be able to go, well, I'm having a really bad day, and so I require more than normal, and I think that should be okay to feel that way, and use more, especially if you're in a critical condition like these people are. They're approving it for and extending the program for HIV, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, which is AIDS, hepatitis C, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, Crohn's disease, which Parkinson's disease, which is awesome to see. I would actually like to see research revolving around how that affects Parkinson's. I think it's an avenue in which people are kind of scared to go across because we just don't know anything about how to treat it. Well, we know a little bit, but not nearly enough. Multiple sclerosis or other conditions of which physicians believe that the medical use of marijuana would likely outweigh the potential health risks for a patient. I kind of rolled my eyes at health risk, but I'm sure that there are people out there who might go, oh, health risk, yeah, that's normal. Caregivers, I thought, was an interesting part of this. Caregivers can actually provide care for the growing of the plants for up to 5 people. And that's something that Washington doesn't have at all. Is you can have a personal caregiver, like I have one, obviously, but that person can only provide care for one patient. So they're, I don't know. I feel like caregivers should be able to make a living on helping people. And these are licensed from the state. So you have to go through the state to be able to get a caregiver license. So if you're caring for plants, the state knows, and they have to know, and the police can enforce that, of course. So I mean, Florida's going really in the like Charlotte's Web direction. They're going for the high CBD, low THC kind of thing. They're going really strictly what looks like on some sort of terminal illness or life-threatening illness, which is fine and totally agreeable. I'm not naysaying that at all. But they're very vague on the rest of it, and it's kind of looks like it's up to physician discretion to kind of give or take that away from you. So with that, I'm going to smoke this, and we'll go into a comment that I read on the opposition that kind of made me chuckle because they almost made a good point. This is Strawberry Haze. It's a sativa. I prefer the sativas. These are high THC, low CBDs, and they help. So this will follow through. Enjoy. I kind of had to get business out of the way first. So there is opposition to this, of course. One of the things that I saw that kind of made me laugh is they were like, yeah, we should totally be focusing on the medical research and be focusing on basically medical marijuana compounds. And what that means is mixing in the CBDs and the terpenes with other pharmaceutical things to create compounds. But the last thing that they said is, after saying that we need to focus on the research, that we deserve better research, and I was like, you got me, you're almost there, I'm listening, and they go, but nothing good has ever come from smoking a crude weed. And I was just like, you just stated a bunch of really factual things that could be they're very true. Of course we need more research. Of course we need to be looking at this. Of course we need to, be continuing our efforts into medical marijuana research. But if you had read any, you would know that there is actual benefit that comes from smoking the flower itself. Not nearly as much as isolating and extracting and condensing, of course not. But to say that there is no benefit from smoking the flower is kind of asinine. And for somebody who's been saying that we should be focusing on the research, you obviously had not read any. And so that's where they lost me. That's where the opposition really lost me. And I'm probably, and Craig had pointed this out, I'm probably one of maybe every 30 people who will actually read this entire thing. And believe me, I've read this legislation 3 or 4 times, and it's just kind of mind-blowing to me that the information on this is really hard to find concrete details. I find a lot of interpretations of the amendment or the legislation, but it's hard to find the really concrete details on this. And I think that's increasingly, let me restart that sentence. It's becoming increasingly difficult to find real information on these laws. And maybe that is because more people would like the interpretation than the actual facts, which is a problem in itself. Or there's a lack of visibility into this legislation on purpose. So when they do change things last minute, because they've been very open about the contributors being able to make changes to these laws. So what that means is that Florida needs to be really careful of what last minute changes do happen to this bill once they do rack up the kind of support it needs to pass. The people that are putting up this bill are United for Care, and this is their second attempt, and they said that they'd kind of just keep going until they won. There are concerns over monopoly in this because there are very limited amount of processors and growers that are able to provide this care for the medical patients. Details of that have been also very scarce, But what it looks like to me is that they have to approve more in the legislature. Um, and the opposition to that, and they're hoping to change that, is that it kind of really dumbs down and takes away the free market thing. So people are a little on the fence. The marijuana initiative that pulled out 2 days ago was a recreational bill that was supposed to be going up for. They were trying to get petitions for it, and they just didn't get enough. Um, but I guess it's a start, right? One of the comments that I read on these proposals is that the last one failed because there was a large, almost like smear campaign that was funded by the owner of a casino somewhere in Florida. And I mean, it kind of made me like both suspicious and kind of want to believe him. But I want to believe him just because, rich people who want their sales to go into liquor and things that are in their stores, I guess, totally makes sense. You don't want your profits being pulled for some crazy plant, dude. But this whole process of finding information on this has been kind of dumb. And I've looked in a lot of different places. I've looked at, tried to find links. I've even went on Normal's website. There was nothing. So that's kind of irritating, and most people are going to give up before I do. So, but the stuff that I did find was kind of helpful, but really vague. And there should be people out there, especially in Florida, who are trying to get the message out there. Especially, you would think even the opposition would be willing to put the details out there to kind of rein in support for their cause as opposed to the legalization cause. But neither side seems to be wanting to throw up the details on the internet. So perhaps I just didn't dig into the state legislation files and go deep down into the guts of the legislators to find this, but I really shouldn't have to. And honestly, I didn't have to with the legislation here either. So my thoughts on it are interesting to me, because they are, again, going for the high CBD, low THC cannabis solution, which is fine. I think that there's a lot of promise in the CBD solution. I think that it's a tremendous help to a lot of various diseases. I think that the more research we have, the more we can really punch down and solidify what it does help and what it doesn't help, and then there will be irrefutable evidence. And once we reach the point of irrefutable evidence, then we can really truly move forward into decriminalization. And the people like the Green Ninjas, who have been calling out for decriminalization for years, will finally, maybe one day, see things pan out the way that they need to. But it's really going to take courage from people in Florida to make this right. And it's going to take courage from people to talk to their families and their friends about this and try and win them over, especially people that are sick that need this help. So don't be scared. If there's enough extra information that I find from comments or links in the videos, I might do a part 2 to this. But yeah, really vague. Really, really, really vague. And it's kind of sad. Because I even sat with Craig and tried to figure this stuff out, and we could barely find anything, and everything that he found I had already found. But yeah, you can always check out the United for Care site. I checked it out, and there was a lot of glitz and glamour, but not a lot of content from what I could see. So if somebody found something I didn't, feel free to comment below, and I will take a look at it. We can always have discussions in the comment section as well, which I totally think should be a thing. new music coming up. We had a dark video come out recently, so make sure to check that out. I know some of you hate those dark videos, but it's to definitely show that, yeah, there are going to be some light leaks, you know, and if you're in a completely enclosed room with no electronics or whatever, or with no, you know, emitting light coming through any of your devices, that's great, but it allows you to see. The light that we do have in those rooms are so low in power, and honestly, the weakness of their power doesn't really make a difference. Somebody had made a comment about the moon's light not affecting plants, and that's not really how science works. Um, and also, not every night is so crazy bright out that you can walk around in your crops. So, kind of on the right track, but not totally. You're not totally wrong, but you're not really right either. So stay orangey, always flush responsibly, like, subscribe, and share, and we will see you guys on another video. Peace.